back in studio here, getting ready to edit some of the photos that we took today. I hope you really enjoyed the section of being out there and shooting with your friends. Now that we're ready to edit, I just want to talk about a few simple tools that I'm going to be mostly focusing on. I personally keep my edits pretty simple, keep more of a natural feel, don't over process too much. That's definitely an aesthetic choice. You can keep playing around with things beyond what we learned today, but I just want to focus on a few simple tools for today. So the first one that we're going to go over is contrast. That's kind of the first one that I'll play with. This is going to give you an idea of what a really high contrast is, and then when you take the contrast away, there's really low contrast, kind of more of a soft vibe. When I'm thinking about contrast, when I'm on the lower end side of contrast, it's going to be much more, it's going to make it feel a lot softer, a lot more gentle. Whereas when you have really high contrast, it's going to be more of an edgy feel to it. You're going to be getting really dark shadows, really bright brights. So you want to think about, when you're choosing what contrast, you want to think about what kind of vibe you're going for. So the next tool that I use a lot of is clarity. I think that that's another one that really kind of lends into deciding what your overall vibe is going to be. I generally like to err towards the side of a little bit of a softer clarity. Really soft is going to be all the way fuzzed out like this. I'll probably usually land somewhere around here. But if you want more of, if you want to have more contrast and more kind of edge to your photos, a high clarity is going to look more like this. I would suggest usually when you're using these tools, you don't want to go too extreme. So kind of landing somewhere just above or below the middle is going to give you a nice kind of medium amount of impact. So after choosing the contrast and the textures, what all the other things that I'll go in to work through are highlights. So we can look at what no highlights is and what really high highlights are. Remember, when you're using a lot of direct light, you're probably going to want to bring your highlights down, whereas when you're backlit, you're probably going to bring the highlights up. Also, another tool I use a lot of are shadows. So here again, with bringing the shadows down, making it much darker, a lot more contrast in that, versus bringing the shadows all the way up, where I'm losing a lot of the contrast and a lot of the form, but I am also heightening some of the pieces that you've lost if your shadows are too dark. So especially with backlight and direct light, we're going to work a lot with highlights and shadows. I don't work too much with whites and blacks. I'll do that a little bit if I feel that the highlights and shadows wasn't enough of an impact for me. But just to give you an idea of what that looks like, here's no whites, and here's full white, and then the blacks, here's full black, and here's no black. So really similar to highlights and shadows. Again, I don't usually go into those, but if I need a little extra pump of shadow or brightness, I'll go into that. So the last section that we're going to be using today is going to be our color tools. You have a few different options in your color tools. You've got luminance, saturation, and hue. For today, we're going to be mostly staying within saturation and luminance. Saturation is just going to give you an extra pop. So here, let's play with the blues a little bit. This blue background, when we bring it up, it's going to bring the saturation of the blue up a lot, make it super poppy, really vibrant. And then if we bring the saturation down, you're going to completely lose that, and it's almost going to be more of on a tone of a black or white. With luminance, working with luminance gives you this extra little glow to the color that you're working with. So for example, if I wanted to bring a little bit of brightness into Steffi's complexion, I'm gonna grab this orange, and it really just like lightens her face a little bit. Again, if I kind of want to bring that color down, we can bring it down, and it's gonna make it a little bit darker. So luminance is just going to add a little extra glow or darkness to whichever color you're choosing. Here's what a blue would look like with a little extra luminance to it, or bringing the luminance down is going to make it a little bit darker. So So overall, as you're using these different tools and deciding what tools to use, you really want to think about the story that you're capturing with this photo. You already have the composition and the subject in front of you, but you want to think about how that composition is telling a story and how you want to further the story that's already there. So if you think about the different kinds of colors and aspects that you're highlighting, it's really going to bring in a different feeling for each of those choices that you make. So for example, when I use clarity and I bring it down a little bit and it softens my photographs, I really feel that kind of gives it this whimsical, mysterious, and kind of fairy tale-like essence to the photograph. So that's for me my own personal choice of how I like to choose to kind of enhance that aspect that I'm playing on when I'm choosing my aesthetic. And thinking about what kind of color choices that you're making and how they're lending to really enhancing the photo. If you bring up the color of your background, it's going to really add a lot of pop to your subject and bring the eye of the viewer right to your subject. So just think about how your editing techniques are enhancing the story and the composition of the photo. You've already discovered this new exciting dynamic compositions with the lighting techniques that we're using, and editing can bring in a whole nother way to really enhance those choices and compositions that you've already made and bring a whole nother really exciting element. When you're going through your photographs, sometimes in camera, it can seem like you didn't get exactly what you wanted. And the editing process is really the chance to heighten and bring to life those stories that maybe you didn't capture exactly in the camera and allow them to come to life in the editing process.